Here's a quick run through of Dante's Inferno, the first installment of Dante's three-part Divine Comedy. In Cantos 1 and 2, we find Dante emerging from the dark wood and attempting to escape the wood by climbing a beautiful mountain. He's turned back by three beasts. A leopard that represents the sins of incontinence or lack of self-control, the lion representing violent sins, and a wolf representing sins of fraud. We can think of this as reminding Dante that he can't achieve salvation on his own or through his own works. Before he can run back to the wood, he meets Virgil, who's been sent by heaven to guide him. Virgil is Dante's hero from classical literature. Remember from the Renaissance we had a resurgence of classical literature. He also represents reason in Dante's work. In Canto 3, Chapter 3, Dante and Virgil reach the gate to hell, and you see the inscription that troubles Dante that says, "Abandon all hope, you who enter here." And they come to the river Acheron, and we meet our first mythological character, Charon, who ferries them across the river into hell. Dante's structure of hell is a pit with 9 levels descending to the bottom at the center of the earth. Each level was for a different primary sin, and the punishment in that level was meant to reflect the sin. And the deeper the level, the worse the sin. In Canto 4, we come to the first circle of hell, which was called Limbo. Limbo was the home for the unbaptized and for virtuous pagans. Again, recalling the importance of classical literature going into the Renaissance, here is where we find many of the classical poets and writers. And the punishment here is passive. It's a sad place, but the punishment is simply eternal life without hope of the presence of God. Here is where Virgil came from. Here's where Homer, Ovid, Horace, Plato, Euclid the geometrician, and others are found. As we move on to this next circle, we come across Minos, the mythological character, the former king of Crete, who was the judge of the underworld. And here Dante has him as the judge of hell, who sends the dead to the appropriate circle according to their primary sin. The second circle is the first circle related to the lack of self-control or incontinence, and it's lust, because these people could not control their lust in life. They cannot control themselves in death as well. They're eternally blown around by stormy winds. And here we meet several famous lovers, including the Helen of Troy, Cleopatra, Achilles, and others. Again, remember that throughout this work, Dante is having conversations with people that he meets, and which gives him an opportunity to make commentary on current times and so forth. In the chapters 6 and 7, circles 3 and 4, we find, first of all, the gluttonous. They have lived in excess all their lives, and then they now lie in disgusting excess. They lie in sewage and are torn by Cerberus, the three-headed dog. In circle 4, we have greed, which have 2 types of people, both the spendthrifts who wasted all their resources, and the hoarders who did not use their resources widely but held on to them. And they roll huge stones against each other for eternity. In circle 5, we come to the river Styx and the marshes around the river. We have the Wrathful, who are fighting in the muddy banks, and the Sullen, who are choking in the mud. Phlegius is called to ferry them across to the gate of the city Dis, and the beginning of the circles of malicious sins. Now they have a little trouble getting through the gate of the city, and ultimately a angel has to come and allow them to enter. In circle 6, they come across the heretics, and these heretics are sitting in flaming tombs. Then they move on to circle 7, and it's divided into 3 rings. These are the sins of violence, and you have violence against others, those who shed blood, so they're now in the river of boiling blood. They are being shot by arrows from centaurs. Here we meet Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, and others. Then you have those who committed violence against themselves. They've been turned into trees and they're being torn by harpies. They did not respect themselves in life, and so now they're not respected by others in death. And then you have those who committed violence against God and nature. Violence against God is blasphemy. Violence against nature and art include those who show perversion to their own bodies, and also interesting, the money lenders, those who charged for lending money. These are dealing with such things as a rain of fire and burning sand. As we move on to Circle 8, Circle 8 houses various frauds, and they're punished in 10 different ditches or bulges. The first ditch houses seducers who are whipped by demons. The second has flatterers who are immersed in excrement. Third are the Simonizers. That's those who use the church for their personal gain, and they are placed headfirst in holes which are like baptismal fonts with their feet sticking out and on fire. The fourth are diviners and magicians and astrologers, those who try to tell the future. They walk in circles with their heads on backwards. They can now only see what's behind them. Then we have barrators or corrupt politicians who are in a river of boiling tar and torn by demons. Have hypocrites who walk around clothed in robes from head to toe. They're lined with lead, weighing them down. Thieves are being bitten by serpents and their bodies combust and then regenerate. Fraudulent counselors are each engulfed in a single continuing flame. And sowers of scandal and schism, those who cause division, so they're continually sliced up by a demon with a sword and then healed. And then finally the falsifiers. These are counterfeiters, liars, impersonators, etc., who are afflicted with terrible diseases. Before we leave this circle, let's look at a few people we run into here. Some of Dante's contemporaries. In the ditch with corrupt churchmen, Dante comes across Pope Nicholas III, who was guilty of nepotism during his rule. But it's interesting enough, and would have even been amusing to those reading at the time, since Nicholas is unable to see, he thinks Dante is Boniface VIII, who's the current pope. Thus we see where Dante thinks Boniface is going to end up. Boniface, recall, is to Dante embodied all that was wrong with the church at the time. Then we run across several other references, including some classical references. In with the seducers, we find Jason with the Argonauts. Jason seduced Medea to help him steal the golden fleece and then abandon her. We find Ulysses or Odysseus with the false counselors. We're reminded of his deceit in cases like the Trojan horse, and leaving Penelope and drawing his crew into adventure. We find Mohammed, who's with the sowers of schism. Next, the last 4 chapters, we end up in circle 9, where we find various types of traders, 4 types of traders. And these traders are each submerged deeper in the ice until the final set are fully submerged. We had traders to kin, traders to homeland, to guests, and to their lords. Here we find some of Dante's contemporaries, considering he felt betrayed himself. Now, in the center of this final section of Traitors to Their Lords, we find Satan trapped in ice with three mouths chewing on the worst sinners, according to Dante: Judas, Brutus, and Cassius. Now, of course, with Brutus and Cassius here, that tells us a little bit about how Dante felt about Julius Caesar. Now, Satan's belly is at the center of the earth, so next we have Dante and Virgil climbing up Satan's legs to the surface of the earth out of hell, and as they emerge from a chasm, they see the island of the Mount Purgatory, which sets us up for the second book, Purgatorio.